Reverend, CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor. That's Norah O'Donnell's in Mayfield, where the tornado damage is so extensive, people say you can't even believe what you're watching. Norah, good morning. I know you were there and you were seeing it firsthand.
Yeah, Gail, where I'm standing, I mean, it just goes on for block after block, just houses, I mean, just totally destroyed. It's just, it's difficult to fathom how much pain there is, too, among many of these families. One of the many stories to be told here in Mayfield involves a minister who narrowly escaped the tornado. The Reverend Joey Reed survived by taking shelter with his wife in the basement closet of Mayfield First United Methodist Church. When they emerged, they found that much of the building had crumbled around them. And here's what the church looked like before and after the tornado hit. Pastor Reed went back with our camera crew to see the damage yesterday, and here's what he had to say.
When we came out and I realized that I was looking up to see the extent of the damage to the church, I was looking at the sky. South wall here collapsed inward and the ceiling came in. The devastation around us is incredible. All of that was part of a molar organ that was historic. You can see some of the ceiling of the portico here. You can see where that's fallen in, and the brickwork is all over the steps. Thanks be to God, the parts of the building that came down didn't come down on us. I realized that it might be the last few moments of my life on this earth, and I was very glad to be with my wife. I know her prayer and mine was that we might be spared. I was afraid for my children, what would happen to them and how they would respond to this. My daughter's going to be married in March, and I'm supposed to do the service. And I was thinking of that quite a bit as the tornado was bearing down on us. All I care about is the fact that the most valuable possessions in my life, my wife's life, my children, they're all safe. And everything else is replaceable.
The Reverend Joey Reed is with us now, and Reverend, thank you. And I mean, the people I've talked to too, amidst all this despair, feel blessed that they're alive.
It's one of the qualities of living in Mayfield, Kentucky, is to see the resilience of the populace. We had a service of worship yesterday. Our bishop was in town, our district superintendent. The United Methodist Church is connectional, and one of my colleagues very quickly offered us a place to come and worship. And I offered to make that worship service something after his. He said, no, let's worship together. And as we came together, we're in the season of Advent, and because Advent contains those four major topics of hope and peace, this Sunday was love. This Sunday was joy. The third Sunday of Advent was already planned, and we realized that we were going to have to do some tweaking, but when we looked at the service, we didn't have to change very much.
How did you give a sermon about joy amidst all this?
There was one surviving bulletin that my administrative assistant at the church had held on to. The rest are at the bottom of that pile of rubble that you saw. On the back of that bulletin, it said, a sermon synopsis, basically, joy is often mistaken for happiness, but happiness can change by a turn of events. Joy is something that abides, and that's what we're holding on to.
You've also talked about how you're counseling people. You know, one of the families I talked to said they have no savings. They are on monthly disability. They have nowhere to go. How do you counsel them? What do you tell them about keeping the faith?
Well, the first thing that we do is we find those needs and we attempt to meet those needs. Yesterday in that service of worship, our district disaster relief coordinator, Bill Carr, was here. Bill is one of those guys who comes in and assesses the situation and sends groups to take care of those immediate needs, moving heavy equipment into place. And he's all about trying to find those bright spots. How can we help? How can we make a positive difference? We also had our conference disaster relief coordinator, whose primary job is to interface with FEMA. The Reverend Robert Craig has been working with disaster relief for quite some time, and as a result knows how to make sure that those dollars are flowing to the right places.
And spiritually?
Spiritually, that's where the local pastors come in, like myself. We are trying to help people understand that as they move from their place of suffering into their discipleship, their servant leadership, we've for a long time talked about how discipleship is forged in a crucible of suffering. And after that suffering is acknowledged,
And that lamentation, a word that we don't talk about very much because it's an Old Testament word for so many people. After we've mourned our losses and started to let go of the things that mean so much to us, we can move into a bright future where we're helping our neighbors. And that's what Mayfield, Kentucky is about.
There is so much suffering, and you just described it. You're supposed to be marrying your daughter in the spring.
In March, and that's about all I could think about in that closet when the tornado was going over. Please, Lord, let me make it so that I can see my little girl married.
And not going to be in the same church, but...
No, the good news is the service is planned for elsewhere. She's still living in Jackson, Tennessee, but we've lost the sanctuary where so many people have seen that very event take place. Marriages, baptisms. We've conducted funerals and laid to rest so many of our members. That building was the repository of our memories, and we have to remember that those memories still belong to us. They cannot be taken from us by something even as devastating as this tornado.
Well, Reverend, it's been lovely to speak with you this morning, and I know so many people will depend on you in these coming years ahead.
Thank you for the chance to tell these stories of resilience. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Pastor Joey Reed. Now let's go back to you. Interesting what he said about so much of your faith forged in the crucible of suffering. Nate?
Nora, thank you.